All right, so we're diving back into Nollywood. Edochie, remember him? Big star. Caused a huge stir last year when he came out and said he had a second wife and a child.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Things kind of blew up, didn't they?
Mhm.
Especially with his first wife, May, coming out and saying she wasn't happy about it at all.
Exactly. Everyone was talking about it. And just when you thought things had died down, another actor, Uche Maduagwu, decides to reignite the whole thing. He put out this really intense Instagram post.
Oh, really? What'd he say?
Well, he basically called Yul out.
Happy birthday to a living goddess. Look at it. God gave you a born-again woman. And you are happily married. Your chick they big. You are looking fresh spiritually. You are looking like Odogu. You go follow living goddess. I went to the dictionary to look at what a goddess means. A goddess is a deity. I told you 2025, God will expose you. God will expose you. Look at, God gave you a born-again woman. That is a queen. That when you were happily married, to when you were happily married, everything was going well for you. Business was going well for you. Because of 5-minute enjoyment with Judy Onikaba. Look at. Now let me tell you a prophecy. God gave me a prophecy. Judy, my girl. God said, the same way you give you Bele, now so he go give your colleague Bele. You just now only sabi this thing, Abi. God gave you a born-again woman. A woman that is intelligent. Tell me your papa talks, say this woman is very intelligent. You go carry living goddess. A deity. That is what a goddess means. And you're now saying, why spiritually, why I can't bend one side like Judy Kebe? Why you don't go bend one side like Judy Kebe? When you cannot hold yourself, don't go wiggle off your back. The cheapest condom is 500 naira. You are happily married to a queen, a born-again woman. Because of, listen to this prophecy. You, Edochie, listen, God said, the same way you give Judy Bele, now so you go give a colleague Bele. Judy, you just not only use having that thing, God will expose you. What can you do when you make a happily married man like you, Edochie, to give you Bele, another woman, say your colleague, go carry him. She said, go get Bele for him. We are not ready in this country. We are not ready. Now, waiting you sow, you go reap. Oh, what is sow is what you reap to the Onikaba. We are not ready in this country. We are not ready.
All right, so we're diving back into Nollywood. Edochie, remember him? Big star. Caused a huge stir last year when he came out and said he had a second wife and a child.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Things kind of blew up, didn't they? Especially with his first wife, May, coming out and saying she wasn't happy about it at all.
Exactly. Everyone was talking about it. And just when you thought things had died down, another actor, Uche Maduagwu, decides to reignite the whole thing. He put out this really intense Instagram post.
Oh, really? What'd he say?
Well, he basically called Yul out for leaving a good woman, that's what he called May, and he said Yul was chasing after a goddess. Now that goddess label, that's where things get interesting.
I see what you mean. Calling someone a goddess, it's not your average compliment, is it?
Yeah, it almost feels like he's trying to say that there's some sort of ranking even within polygamy. Like the second wife is somehow this amazing, alluring figure, and it kind of puts the first wife in a negative light.
Exactly. And that whole thing about polygamy, it's not as straightforward as people might think, especially in Nigeria.
Yeah, what's the cultural context there?
Well, there are the really traditional views, which see polygamy as totally normal, acceptable. But then you have like the younger generations, they're really starting to question it. Like, is it really fair? Does it still make sense in today's world?
So it's like two different worlds colliding.
Exactly.
And wait, there's more. Uche also threw out this pretty serious accusation, saying Yul might be expecting another child with a third woman.
Wow. 3.
Yeah, it's a lot. But we do have to be careful here. We don't actually know if that's true or not. Just an allegation at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing with the internet these days. Anything can get out there, spread like wildfire. It makes you think about the ethics of it all.
Yeah.
Putting out sensitive information without really checking if it's true.
And it shows the power of social media, how
Yeah.
quickly things can spread. It's amazing how it's amplified this whole Edochie thing.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Everyone has a voice now. Information can spread really fast, but then there's rumors, unverified claims, especially about famous people.
Right. It's like once it's out there, you can't take it back. The story just takes on a life of its own. And the public reaction to this whole Edochie thing has been fascinating. Some people are praising Uche for speaking up. Others are saying he should mind his own business.
Yeah, it's such a mix. And then you have the whole debate about polygamy itself. People defending Yule's right to practice it because of his culture, and others saying it's a betrayal of his first wife.
It's wild. It's like everyone has an opinion.
And I think it shows how much things are changing in Nigeria. It's not just about individual choices anymore. It's sparked this bigger discussion about cultural evolution, gender roles, how tradition fits into a society that's modernizing really fast.
Yeah. And within polygamy itself, it's not one size fits all either, right? Different interpretations, different experiences.
Exactly. It's complex. But let's step back for a second. Think about Yul Edochie himself. Successful actor, has a family, and then boom, this personal decision turns into a massive public spectacle. The pressure must be intense.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It makes you think. About the human side of it all.
It reminds us that even celebrities, with all their fame and money, they're still people, just trying to figure things out, dealing with complicated situations, just like everyone else.
It's just that their problems are played out for the whole world to see.
Right. It's amplified by the news, social media. It's relentless.
And it makes you think about those expectations. Are celebrities held to a different standard? Because their lives are so public. Do they have, like, a bigger responsibility to be role models? Or should they have the same privacy as anyone else?
That's a tough one. There's no easy answer, is there? On the one hand, they do have a platform. They influence people. Their actions matter. But at the same time, they're still individuals with their own beliefs, their own desires.
Right, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Personal freedom versus public perception.
It really is.
And speaking of perception, let's go back to Uche for a minute. This isn't his first time stirring things up. I mean, he's kind of known for making controversial statements.
Yeah, he does have a reputation. So is he genuinely concerned about Yule and what he's doing? Or is this just a way to get attention, stay relevant?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Maybe he's playing the game, so to speak, using all this to boost his own profile.
Yeah, it could be. Actually, there's this study back in 2015.
Hold on, 2015. What does that have to do with anything?
Just stick with me for a second.
Yeah.
It was in the Journal of Celebrity Studies. They were looking at how celebrities stay relevant. And one of the things they found was that controversy works, gets people talking, keeps them in the headlines. And that can lead to more opportunities.
So you're saying Uche might be thinking long term?
Possibly. And it's not just him. It's a trend you see in entertainment. Controversy sells, makes people pay attention. I mean, look, we're talking about his posts right now, aren't we? So it's working to some extent.
That's true. But let's shift gears a bit. Think about May, Yule's first wife, for a minute. She's built a life with this guy, they have a family, and suddenly everything changes. He decides to enter a polygamous relationship, something she clearly doesn't want.
It's tough. Makes you think about relationships, what we expect. We often think about commitment, exclusivity. But what happens when those things change? How do you deal with it? Especially when it goes against everything you believe in.
It's a heavy question. And it's bigger than just celebrity gossip, isn't it? At its heart, it's about relationships, choices, how those choices affect the people around you. We can all relate to that in some way, right? Whether we've been through it or seen it happen to someone we know.
Definitely. It's why people are so drawn to this story.
Yeah.
Love, betrayal, trust, it's all there. And then trying to figure out relationships in a world that's constantly changing.
And social media just adds another layer to it all, doesn't it? It's become this battleground for public opinion, people taking sides. It's like the line between someone's personal life and what's considered public is completely blurred.
That's the thing about this digital age. Social media gives everyone a voice, but it also creates this culture of instant judgment. Everything you do, every decision, it's out there for everyone to see and critique.
Yeah, it's like everyone's a commentator now, giving their opinion on things that used to be considered private family matters.
And that has consequences for how we handle relationships, not just romantic ones, friendships, family, even work. You're always thinking about what people might say. It can really affect how you act, even if you don't realize it.
Makes you wonder if we're losing the ability to keep things private.
That's the question, isn't it? Social media can be great for connecting with people, raising awareness, but there's a downside too. All that negativity, judgment, no privacy. It's a tricky balance.
All right, so we've talked about the culture, the social media circus, what it's like to be famous, but what about our listeners?
Exactly. Let's connect this to everyday life.
I mean, how does this whole Edochie situation apply to our listeners?
Well, it makes you think about your own life, right? What do you believe in when it comes to relationships? How do you deal with it when people have different expectations? Or when your culture kind of pushes you in one direction?
It's a lot to think about. This isn't just about Edochie and Nollywood. It's about all of us. I mean, think about it. Your friends, your family, the people you work with. Has anyone ever done something, especially relationship-wise, that just made you wonder what they were thinking?
All the time, right?
Exactly. And it's like, how do you react?
Yeah, that's the hard part.
I know I've had those moments where a friend does something and I'm just like, seriously, what are you doing?
I feel that. But I think that's where empathy comes in. Even if you don't get it, someone's choices, can you at least try to see it from their point of view? Can you be there for them without necessarily saying what they're doing is right?
I think so. It's like remembering that everyone has their own values and everyone's on their own path. And sometimes those paths go in directions we don't like.
Exactly. And we don't always have to like it, but we can try to understand it.
It all comes back to talking to each other, doesn't it? You can't just assume everyone sees the world the same way you do.
It's true.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to have the hard conversation. Say what's on your mind, but also listen to the other side, even when it's something you totally disagree with.
Yeah. And those conversations can be even harder when you throw culture into the mix. Take polygamy. It's a normal part of life in some cultures, but in others, it's completely foreign. So how do you even begin to talk about that when people have such different ideas about what a relationship should be?
That is a tough one. There's no simple answer. I think you have to start by acknowledging that it's complicated. There are all these different perspectives, and go into the conversation wanting to learn, even if you don't end up agreeing.
It's a lot to process, and that's what's great about these deep dives,
Yeah.
We get to really explore these complicated issues, look at things from all sides, and hopefully people walk away with a better understanding of just how complex life is.
For sure. It's all about nuance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the whole Edochie situation, I want to leave our listeners with a question. Imagine this was happening with someone close to you. How would you handle it? Would you try to understand their choices, be there for them, or would you feel like you had to pick a side?
Makes you think, doesn't it? It's about looking at your own values, how much empathy you have, and how you navigate relationships in a world where everything is constantly changing.
And that's what the deep dive is all about. Exploring tough topics, questioning what we think we know, and encouraging people to think critically. And sometimes it's better to end up with more questions than answers. That's how we learn.
So, to our listeners, think about it. What would you do if you were in this situation? Something to really ponder, maybe even talk about with your friends and family.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Nollywood culture and all the drama that comes with social media. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic to explore. Until then, stay curious and keep those conversations going.